Picture this. It's the 1960s, a decade of rebellion, revolution, and raw creativity. Filmmakers are pushing boundaries, diving into taboos like sex, drugs, and societal decay. Topics that make audiences squirm and censors sweat. But some of these films were so bold, so shocking, that they were banned, buried, or forgotten for decades, only to be rediscovered as cinematic treasures. Today, we're uncovering 10 lost films from the 1960s that shook the world, vanished into obscurity, and came back to rewrite film history. From gritty documentaries to psychological thrillers, these movies were ahead of their time, and they're finally getting their due. The 1960s cinematic landscape. The 1960s were a battleground for artistic freedom. The world was changing. Civil rights movements, counterculture, and a new wave of filmmakers who didn't care about playing it safe. Hollywood was churning out glossy blockbusters, but independent directors were crafting raw, provocative stories that challenged everything from censorship to societal norms. Problem was, not everyone was ready for it. Censorship boards like the British Board of Film Classification and New York's Morality Police were quick to slap bans on anything too daring. Distributors, scared of losing money, often pulled these films when audiences didn't show up. And yet, these movies, hidden for decades, captured truths about their time that mainstream cinema wouldn't touch. Thanks to archivists, film historians, and a bit of luck, these lost gems have been rediscovered, revealing their brilliance and influence. Let's start with a film that exposed the dark side of swinging London. London in the Raw, 1964. This wasn't your typical postcard view of London with Big Ben and tea parties. This exploitation documentary, directed by Arnold L. Miller and Norman Cohen, dove headfirst into the capital's shadowy underbelly. Strip clubs, gambling dens, and nightlife that respectable Londoners pretended didn't exist. It promised an unfiltered look at Soho's seedy bars, basement jazz clubs, and back-alley deals, showing a city pulsing with vice and vitality. But the British Board of Film Censors wasn't having it. They slammed the film for its immoral depiction of London's darker corners, demanding cuts that would have gutted its raw honesty. Audiences, too, were uncomfortable confronting their city's gritty reality. Many preferred the polished image of the swinging 60s. With disappointing box office numbers, distributors pulled the film within months, and prints seemed to vanish into thin air. For over 40 years, London in the Raw was a whispered legend among exploitation cinema fans, surviving only in the memories of the lucky few who caught its brief theatrical run. Fast forward to 2007. During a routine cataloging project, the British Film Institute uncovered a pristine 35mm print buried deep in their archives, preserved like it was waiting for its moment to shine. Film scholars lost their minds. This was a time capsule of 1960s London, capturing subcultures and locations mainstream documentaries ignored. Restoration began immediately, with experts revitalizing the grainy footage to reveal smoky clubs, eccentric characters, and a city in transition. What emerged wasn't just a sleazy exploitation flick. It was a historical document, showing London at a crossroads between post-war austerity and the cultural explosion of the late 60s. The film's candid portrayal of sex workers, gamblers, and underground musicians gave voice to marginalized communities, making it a vital piece of social history. Its rediscovery sparked academic debates about exploitation cinema's role as an unintentional chronicler of urban life, influencing modern documentaries like The Act of Killing that blend raw reality with cinematic flair. Today, London in the Raw is celebrated for its unapologetic honesty, proving that even trashy films can hold profound cultural value. Private Property, 1960. Now, let's head across the pond to 1960s America, where Private Property shook up the independent film scene. Directed by Leslie Stevens, this psychological thriller was a lightning bolt nobody wanted to acknowledge. Starring Corey Allen and Warren Oates, it followed two drifters who manipulate and terrorize a housewife in a chilling tale of sexual exploitation and moral decay. Shot on a shoestring budget of $60,000 in just 10 days, its raw intensity and provocative themes were light years ahead of mainstream Hollywood's comfort zone. Audiences in 1960 weren't ready for its unsettling exploration of psychological violence, and distributors pulled it from circulation after a brief, poorly received run. Private Property became a film school legend, referenced in academic papers but nearly impossible to watch. For decades, it existed in whispers, with only a handful of grainy stills and memories to prove it was real. Enter David Marriott, a film historian with a knack for chasing lost cinema. Marriott spent years tracking leads through defunct distribution companies and abandoned storage facilities. In 2015, his obsession paid off when he found a surviving print in a private collector's vault, preserved by someone who didn't even realize its cultural significance. The print was damaged from decades of neglect, requiring meticulous frame-by-frame restoration. When Private Property premiered at the 2016 Cannes Film Festival, critics were floored. This wasn't just a curiosity, it was a groundbreaking work that prefigured the gritty realism of 1970s American cinema, with echoes in films like Taxi Driver and Badlands. The film's stark cinematography, shot in black and white, and its unflinching look at human darkness influenced a generation of indie filmmakers, even if they hadn't seen it. Its rediscovery also shed light on the challenges independent directors faced in the 1960s, battling conservative distributors and censorship. Today, Private Property is hailed as a lost masterpiece, a testament to the power of bold, uncompromising storytelling. The Queen, 1967, directed by Frank Simon, captured something truly extraordinary. The Miss All-America Camp Beauty Pageant, a vibrant celebration of drag culture in New York City. This documentary offered an unvarnished look at gay life during an era when being openly queer could cost you your job, your family, or even your life. With intimate moments between contestants, candid conversations about identity, and performances radiating defiance, it was a bold snapshot of a subculture thriving against all odds. But when it hit theaters in 1968, mainstream audiences weren't ready to confront this world. The film's brief run drew minimal attention, and after lackluster box office results, distributors moved on. The Queen evaporated from public consciousness, becoming a phantom documentary. Scholars knew it existed, but finding a print was like chasing a ghost. For nearly half a century, it survived only in the memories of those who saw its original screenings. The breakthrough came in 2012, through pure serendipity. Archivists at Outfest and the UCLA Film and Television Archive stumbled upon a 16mm print, preserved almost by accident. They immediately recognized its historical weight. This wasn't just a film, it was a vital record of pre-Stonewall gay life. Restoration experts worked tirelessly to salvage the decades-old footage, revealing stunningly intimate moments. Contestants discussing survival in a hostile world, laughing backstage, and strutting with unapologetic pride. When The Queen was re-released in 2019, it was a revelation. Audiences saw a time capsule that contextualized the courage it took to live authentically in the 1960s. The film's influence is undeniable. It paved the way for documentaries like Paris is Burning and shaped modern queer cinema. Its rediscovery also sparked discussions about representation, showing how far gay rights have come and how much bravery it took to get here. If you're into queer history or bold documentaries, this one's a must. Night Tide, 1961. Let's shift gears to Night Tide, a 1961 gem that's equal parts horror, romance, and psychological thriller. Directed by Curtis Harrington and starring a young Dennis Hopper, this low-budget indie was too strange for mainstream audiences and too polished for the exploitation circuit. Shot for just $50,000, it followed a sailor who falls for a mysterious woman who might be a mythical sea creature. Its haunting ambiguity and poetic visuals defied easy categorization, making it a tough sell in 1961. After a limited theatrical run, distributors abandoned it when box office receipts tanked. Night Tide slipped into cinematic limbo, a frustrating kind of death where everyone involved. Harrington, Hopper, the crew, knew they'd created something special, but couldn't prove it existed. For decades, it was referenced in academic papers but impossible to screen. Then, in the late 1990s, a 35mm print surfaced in a Los Angeles storage facility, believed to be a loan copy preserved by chance. The Academy Film Archive jumped on it, launching a comprehensive restoration project. The result was a revelation, a film that anticipated the art house horror movement by years, blending supernatural elements with psychological depth. Critics now see echoes of Night Tide in David Lynch's dreamlike narratives and Ari Aster's moody horror. Its rediscovery proved that some films arrive before their audience is ready. Night Tide's exploration of isolation and identity resonates today, and its restoration has sparked renewed interest in early American independent horror. If you love creepy, atmospheric films, this one's for you. The Connection, 1961. Shirley Clarke's The Connection hit like a surgical strike against America's moral panic over drugs. Based on Jack Gelber's controversial play, this groundbreaking film portrayed heroin addiction among jazz musicians with unflinching realism. Clarke didn't sensationalize or preach. She showed addiction as a grinding, messy reality, blending documentary-style footage with fictional narrative. Shot in a single set, it captured raw performances and improvisational energy, set to a jazz soundtrack that pulsed with urgency. New York's censorship board wasn't impressed. They banned the film, calling it morally corrupting for its frank depiction of drug use. Distributors, seeing no profit in a banned movie, gave up, and The Connection vanished after a brief run. For 40 years, it was a ghost in cinema history, discussed in academic circles but impossible to study. Scholars knew Clarke had pioneered something revolutionary, but the evidence was locked away. In the early 2000s, a mislabeled 35mm print was discovered in the Royal Belgian Film Archive. Restoration specialists recognized its importance and began painstaking work to bring it back. The 2012 re-release was a bombshell. Critics marveled at Clarke's improvisational direction and jazz-infused editing, which felt decades ahead of its time. The film influenced indie pioneers like John Cassavetes and modern filmmakers who blend realism with narrative, like the Safdie brothers. The Connection also sparked crucial conversations about women directors erased from history. As one of the few female filmmakers of her era, Clarke faced immense barriers, yet her vision endured. This film's rediscovery is a testament to her genius and the power of art to survive censorship. The Party's Over, 1965. Guy Hamilton, fresh off directing Goldfinger, dropped The Party's Over, a film that made the swinging 60s look like a nightmare. Starring Oliver Reed in a raw, disturbing performance, it followed a group of disillusioned London youths spiraling into violence, substance abuse, and moral decay. This wasn't the fun, groovy 60s of Beatles mania. It was a brutal critique of privilege and excess, showing the dark side of youth culture. The British Board of Film Censors launched an all-out war against it. Scenes of sexual violence and Reed's erratic character were deemed so offensive that they demanded cuts that would have destroyed the narrative. Hamilton refused to compromise, pulling the film from British cinemas entirely. It became a forbidden relic, with only heavily edited versions shown in European art houses. For decades, film historians believed the uncut version was lost forever, another casualty of censorship's heavy hand. Then, in the early 2000s, an uncut 35mm print surfaced at a private estate sale. Restoration experts reconstructed Hamilton's full vision, revealing a prophetic critique of British class structures and the emptiness of hedonism. Re-released, it's now seen as a precursor to British social realist films like Trainspotting. Its suppression only amplified its power to disturb, proving that some films are too raw for their era. Have you seen Oliver Reed in action? The Savage Innocents, 1960. Nicholas Ray, the visionary behind Rebel Without a Cause, took a bold swing with The Savage Innocents in 1960. Starring Anthony Quinn as an Inuit hunter navigating the clash between traditional life and Western influence, this Arctic drama tackled cultural displacement and environmental themes. Its unconventional narrative and Quinn's controversial casting as an indigenous character made it a tough sell in America and Britain, where it saw limited release. But in Europe and Asia, audiences embraced its poetic storytelling, keeping prints in circulation long after Western copies vanished. The film's revival began with a stunning find, a pristine 35mm print in a Japanese university archive, preserved for decades. An international restoration project brought Ray's vision back in vivid clarity, complete with sequences cut from Western releases. Critics now praise its ahead-of-its-time exploration of identity and colonialism, comparing it to later films like At an Arduate, The Fast Runner. The Cool World, 1963. Shirley Clarke returns with The Cool World, one of cinema's most authentic portrayals of 1960s Harlem. Adapted from Warren Miller's novel, this drama followed a teenage gang member navigating poverty and systemic racism with documentary-style realism. Shot on location in Harlem, it captured the raw energy of the streets, from bustling corners to cramped tenements. But its stark honesty unsettled audiences. and major distributors rejected it as too provocative. Complex rights issues and a lost original negative sealed its fate, relegating it to obscurity after limited arthouse runs. Clarke, already fighting an uphill battle as a female director tackling controversial material, watched her groundbreaking work fade away. For decades, The Cool World survived only in academic discussions and the memories of its brief original audience. Then, in the late 1990s, archivists at the University of Wisconsin uncovered a pristine 35mm print in their film library. The Academy Film Archive led a meticulous restoration, bringing Clarke's vision back to theaters in the 2010s. Critics now hail it as a vital chapter in African American cinema, challenging stereotypes and inspiring filmmakers like Spike Lee, whose Do the Right Thing echoes its raw energy. The Cool World's rediscovery underscores Clarke's fearless legacy and the power of cinema to confront systemic issues. Have you seen films that capture urban life like this? The Naked Kiss, 1964. Samuel Fuller's The Naked Kiss starts with a bang, a bald prostitute attacking her pimp with a telephone. That opening set the tone for one of cinema's most uncompromising looks at moral duplicity. Following a sex worker trying to rebuild her life as a nurse in a seemingly wholesome town, it exposed prostitution, sexual violence, and small-town corruption. Fuller's stark, in-your-face style defied every convention of 1960s cinema, and distributors bailed after a brief, poorly distributed run. By the 1980s, The Naked Kiss was a ghost, discussed by scholars but nearly impossible to find. Surviving prints were deteriorating, and Fuller's legacy leaned on his war films instead. Then, in the 1990s, a projectionist clearing out a Texas drive-in found a near-pristine 35mm print in the projection booth. The Criterion Collection restored it in 2007, sparking renewed interest. Critics called it Fuller's most personal work, a raw commentary on America's hypocrisy that influenced neo-noir and indie films like Pulp Fiction. Peeping Tom, 1960. We wrap up with Peeping Tom, directed by Michael Powell, one of cinema's most unsettling explorations of voyeurism and violence. This psychological thriller followed a filmmaker who murders women while recording them, delving into his disturbed psyche and childhood trauma. The British Board of Film Censors demanded sweeping cuts, and American distributors hacked out key scenes, turning a nuanced masterpiece into a fragmented exploitation flick. Critics trashed it, and the backlash effectively ended Powell's career. By the 1970s, some scholars doubted the original cut even existed, with Powell's claims of a longer version dismissed as self-defense. Then, in the late 1990s, archivists at the Deutsche Kinemathek in Berlin found unmarked canisters containing pristine English-language reels. These German prints, imported before censorship, preserved Powell's full vision. Restoration revealed deleted scenes that deepened the film's psychological complexity, particularly around the killer's trauma. Re-released, Peeping Tom is now a landmark of psychological horror, influencing films like Scream and Hereditary with its themes of media violence and viewer complicity. Its rediscovery turned a notorious flop into a masterpiece, proving Powell was decades ahead of his time. The legacy of these lost films. These films, London in the Raw, Private Property, The Queen, Night Tide, The Connection, The Party's Over, The Savage Innocence, The Cool World, The Naked Kiss, and Peeping Tom, were buried by censorship, societal discomfort, or bad luck. But their rediscovery is a testament to the power of cinema to endure. These aren't just movies, they're time capsules, capturing the 1960s raw truths: urban grit, queer defiance, racial injustice, and psychological depth. Thanks to archivists, historians, and sheer chance, we can now appreciate their brilliance. They influenced everything from indie cinema to modern horror and queer storytelling, proving that bold art can survive suppression. They also remind us of the 1960s censorship battles, where fearless filmmakers fought to tell uncomfortable truths. Want more deep dives into movies that changed history? Hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. Share this with a fellow film buff, and let's keep unearthing the stories that time forgot. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.